It's good morning from me.
And it's good morning from me.
Good morning.
You're watching OAE News, Ambleside's premium news network. Today's feature story. A proposal has been put forward for the reintroduction of the Eurasian Lynx to the remote hills of the Kintyre Peninsula. This once native wildcat has been absent from the British Isles for over 1300 years. But will we be welcoming them home to these shores once more?
Well, not quite so hasty there, Jason. There are many in this land who would not be best pleased with an additional feline presence. Farmers are concerned for the welfare of their livestock, and scientists cannot quite agree on whether there is enough suitable habitat to support this animal.
To find out more about this bold proposal, I shall introduce you to our first business correspondent, Sophie Bruce, who is with conservationist Charlotte Goodall. Good morning, Miss Bruce. A cracking day, isn't it?
Good morning, Jason, and good morning, Tim. It is indeed a fine day.
Let's go over to Charlotte Goodall, a conservationist from the Lynx Trust. Good morning, Charlotte.
Good morning.
Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the proposed plan for the reintroduction of lynx into Scotland?
Yeah, so I'm a conservationist with a speciality of wild cats, and I have been a part of the Lynx Trust since its formation in 2014. And we are a non-profit organisation composed of a group of scientists and conservationists, all with specialities in wild felines, looking to reintroduce the lynx into Scotland with the ultimate goal of creating a stable population of lynxes within the UK.
Interesting. And how do you plan on achieving this goal? Do you think it's beneficial for Scotland itself and the ecology, or will bringing back the Scottish wildcat do more harm than good?
So Scotland contains one of the most beautiful and wild natural landscapes within the UK, of which the Scottish public should be and are justifiably proud. Our aim is to bring back a vital part of Scotland's natural heritage by bringing back the lynx, and by conducting a highly regulated scientific trial studying the effects of lynx on the Scottish wildlife and landscape, specifically to the wild area of Kintyre in Scotland. We believe that the lynx reintroduction will offer significant ecological benefits to the natural ecology of the Scottish landscape and benefit the native flora and fauna, whilst posing few risks, all of which we can mitigate. It would also contribute to a significant improvement of the wider conservation status of the Eurasian Lynx within Europe, restoring a species which, were not for man's involvement, would have been present in the UK.
You talk about significant ecological benefits. Could you expand on what those might be?
Yes, so at present the Scottish ecosystem is currently out of balance with an overabundant deer population. This is threatening the ecology of forests and the forest regeneration itself. The reintroduction of lynxes could manage this threat and increase the biodiversity in Scotland, as they would have a cascading effect on the ecosystem and food chain due to their main food source being roe deer. Overbrowsing by deer is a huge concern at the moment and severely damages the ecosystem of the forest. A huge worry is the likelihood of lynx preying on sheep, and we have worked out that there will be some sheep predation, but levels will be low and localised, and this can easily be mitigated. What's important to remember is that there will be minor livestock problems in comparison to the major ecological benefits.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. Now back to the studio with Jason and Tim.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, let's go back to Jack Jackson, who, over the power of the internet, has Scottish entrepreneur Luthfi Labstein with him. Luthfi.
Now let's go over to our entrepreneur, Luthfi. Luthfi, what are your thoughts on the reintroduction of Eurasian Lynx?
Thanks, Jack, for having me on. Let me introduce myself. My name's Luthfi Labstein. I'm a veteran in this field of entrepreneurship, working with the UK and international charities and trusts for over 2 decades. I think I'm just going to say what most of us are thinking. The reintroduction of Eurasian lynx will be beneficial to Scotland's ecotourism, and I believe that too. I can see a boost in the number of tourists coming in if their introduction is successful, and this will also create more job opportunities in themed cafes, pubs, souvenirs and village shops, B&Bs, bicycle renting, and petrol consumption. I've read the Lynx Trust study on the release of lynx in northern Germany, and according to O'Donoghue, the lynx could give a £12.5 million boost to the local economy through tourism alone.
How much do you think it will cost to do these reintroductions?
According to Chris White, an environmental economist from ACOM, there are many factors to consider in the estimated cost of the initial five-year trial period. Infrastructure capture costs, monitoring ecologists, monitoring assistants, local education, travel, vet cost, and project management and exit funds. The cost of reintroduction at another site called Kintyre Forest totaled at roughly £723,000.
Do you think these reintroductions will cause problems?
Well, I agree with Charlotte that the reintroduction will be beneficial to controlling the population of deers, but I think we also need to factor in the possibility of predation towards livestock. It has been centuries since lynx were exterminated by man. Their behavior could change. In France, the number of sheep attacks by lynx per year increased from 3 in 1984 to 180 in 1989. According to UK legislation and compensation, under Regulation 81 or 82, stipulates compensation of £30 for sheep at the end of their productive life if they are found to have a certain disease abbreviated as TSE, £90 for younger animals. Factoring in market value per ewe, ranging from £19 to £70, while store lamb prices ranges from £45 to £70 across Great Britain, a compensation of £90 appears to be reasonable. However, distress to sheep owners regarding the nature of sheep loss to predators such as lynx can result in a compensation of double the maximum market price, i.e. about for £140 per sheep lost.
Now back to the studio with Jason and Tim.
Interesting points from Luthfi there. Now let's hear from some residents in Kintyre to see what the local community is saying about the matter. Our rural affairs correspondent Tara Delavine is on the scene and on the ground with them now. Tara, can you hear us?
Good morning, Mr. Heaton. Yes, I can hear you. And good morning, Mr. Loader. I'm joined today by two residents from Kintyre. The first is Tom Wellington Boots, a local sheep farmer in Kintyre. His farm is just over the hill from where the lynxes are set to be reintroduced, and he is against the reintroduction. That's why you don't agree with the rewilding proposal.
Thank you, Tara. Yes, my name is Tom Wellington Boots. I live in Kintyre with my wife and 3 daughters on a farm. I also work there and have 600 ewes and 60 coos. I'm the president of the NFUS as well, the National Farmers Union in Scotland, and so I speak on behalf of the farming community around here. I and them are mostly against the proposal as the risk to our livelihoods and our sheep is far too great in my opinion.
I see. Could you please expand on that?
Certainly, Tara. As shown in reports in Norway, sheep are an easy target, and lynx, an ambush predator. They'll attack and worry them, and I cannot and I will not support anything which creates further gratuitous challenges for the farming community. In Norway in 2016, farms were paid compensation for 4,200 sheep that had been killed by lynx alone. I know compensation schemes can be put in place around here, however these will always take lots of time and investigation, and most farmers in rural places up here in Kintyre are stretched for time and are already fragile financially.
Charlotte Goodall mentioned the need to rebalance our ecosystem. Don't you think it's time to right a wrong?
Well, quite frankly, Tara, I do not think it's time to right a wrong. I think that chance passed many centuries ago. We no longer have this landscape or the space for it. We are too densely populated. Charlotte Goodall mentioned the fact that there would only be minor damage to sheep. That is a perfect example of the ignorance that these tree huggers have. Every sheep is important to a farmer, financially and sentimentally.
Could you give me an example of what would happen if lynxes were to be reintroduced?
Well, there's no doubt that, as Mrs. Goodall mentioned previously, the lynx will change the landscape. However, this means farmers will also have to change their methods of farming, and they never asked for that. An example is the white-tailed eagle that has already been brought back approximately 10 years ago. In one lambing season, for example, one farm succumbed to 86 lamb deaths from these white-tailed eagles. Lynx are a step up from that. I do, however, understand that the UK government has a national obligation to consider reintroductions and rewilding due to the legislation put forward by the Habitats Directive and the IUCN. But Kintyre is not the place.
What could be done to change your mind?
Well, firstly, the Lynx Trust UK should be working with us right from the start of the rewilding proposition, and there's not enough involvement with us from the ground, from the start. We feel rather left out. Secondly, we want more certainty that the ecological change will not affect us in the future, and we want absolute certainty that the government will be there to help us financially when things go tits up. Thirdly, we want management measures. We want legal rights to be able to shoot a lynx if it becomes a real problem.
Lastly, how should, in your opinion, farmers play a part in helping to look after the ecosystem?
Well, Tara, I do not agree with this often fanatical ideology of rewilding that is championed by the rabid guardian-reading socialists. However, I do feel farmers and landowners should be financially encouraged to use their resources to create and maintain habitats for native flora and fauna that is already here and pose no threat to our livelihoods.
Thank you, Mr. Wellington Boots.
Thank you.
We'll be joined by Stephen Dandy, a local lynx specialist who has worked with lynx when he was a zookeeper in Edinburgh Zoo and has also been involved in rewilding in the Harz Mountains in Germany.
Hello Tara, yes that's right.
Stephen, hearing what Tom has to say there about the potential problems caused by lynx, how would you come back to that as someone who wants lynx to be reintroduced in Scotland?
Well Tara, I'd say the lynx, it's no pussycat, you know. They have their own unique set of issues, and I think Farmer Tom is quite right in having some concerns about them. I would like to see them introduced here, but I do think the recent proposal is a little hasty.
Why do you think it is hasty?
Well, I don't think the folks over at the Lynx Trust have thoroughly thought through their release strategy. You see, there has been no mention about the long-term strategy of the programme, and I don't think they have taken into consideration what is going to happen with the lynx in the coming years.
Could you expand on that?
Well, it comes down to the behaviour of the lynx. It may all be well and good with a few individuals as they can keep to the forest here that is available for them. But what about when the population starts to grow? In the Harz Mountains, we worked out that each lynx needed about 200 to 300 kilometres squared of territory per individual. Lynx are a solitary, territorial animal, and they like their space. One hopes that new lynx will head up into the Highlands, where there is more forest for them. But what about what happens along the way? Between there and here, there are people and livestock like Farmer Tom and his flock. The number one factor in animal reintroduction is the people. You need to get everybody on board. I don't think all of the locals are on board just yet.
Tom mentioned the potential threats to his livestock posed by the lynx through predation. Many ecologists would argue that the lynx mainly prefer deer, not sheep. What would you say to that?
Well, I think both parties are right. Lynx are a deer specialist, specifically roe deer, and occasionally red deer when they can get it. But they do eat livestock like sheep. It happens most in places like Norway, as Tom says, but perhaps not to the extent that he's alluded to. When roe deer are available, lynx will eat roe deer. The issue arises when sheep are easier to get at than deer, and that will likely be when the two meet, as they come out the forest and onto the farmland. Now in Norway, farmers tend to let their sheep graze in the forest, whereas we don't really do that here, so the contact with lynx would likely be much lower. Lynx are ambush hunters and need to hunt their prey. They need to get within 50 metres before they can initiate their attack. This would likely be in the typical environment we find sheep in Scotland. Add to that the fact that they are very shy animals. It doesn't take a lot to scare them off, and when you do, they are unlikely to come back. So I think the picture of these vicious sheep-munching panthers that attack in the dead of night, that Tom has so colourfully painted, is not actually that accurate. And they kill things pretty quickly when they can with a bite to the throat. However, livestock predation is still a likelihood, it perhaps a relatively low one, but the fact remains that the Lynx Trust have glossed over what they are going to do about it.
It sounds like you know these creatures quite well. What would you say, Mr. Dandy, to the folk over at the Lynx Trust if you could give them some advice about their proposal?
Well, Tara, I rather wish the Lynx Trust had put some of their trust in me. You see, I spent some time studying Lynx reintroduction, and together with the folks at the Kintyre Collective, we conducted a comprehensive study to determine whether Kintyre was a suitable place for lynx. The Lynx Trust never asked to look at it. Anyway, the rough process was as follows. So first we had a thorough literature review of the lynx ecology, and then we mapped the complete Scottish landscape. Within that, then we mapped all the potential lynx habitat within that landscape, and then we plugged all of that data and the stuff about the lynx into a computer model, and we ran these simulations that predicted all the possibilities and eventualities of a lynx reintroduction. Over 100, in fact, were ran. And the Kintyre Peninsula, it came out with an 83% chance of success, with a predicted total of 150 lynx spread across the Highlands after 100 years from starting population of 10. So you see, it is a good place to put lynx from on paper, but there needs to be a thorough and scientific process that considers all of the ecological, economic and human factors at play. In their eagerness to get the lynx back into Scotland, I think the Lynx Trust has overlooked many of these factors. What do they know of lynx birth and death rates, life stages and gender differences in immigration behaviour? All of these and much more influence how and when lynx behave.
Thank you both. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Tara. Really interesting stuff. And a special thanks to those two handsome men whose thoughts and opinions were so eloquently conveyed.
Now we're going to our second Luthfi of the day, our political correspondent, Luthfi Koonsberg. Over to you, Mr. Koonsberg.
Thanks, guys. Well, I have here with me the Environment Secretary, Jacobite Gove. He's standing right there. He will be speaking on behalf of the government. Jack, can I call you Jack? Can I begin with asking you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the government's thoughts on the reintroduction of lynx into Scotland?
My name is Jacobite Gove, and I'm the Secretary of State for the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Over the last 3 years, I've had a lot of interaction with the Lynx Trust and the applications to reintroduce lynx. 2 years ago, I decided not to accept the reintroduction application for lynx in the Kintyre Forest on the grounds that the project lacked organisation, depth of research and failed to engage with key stakeholders. The reintroduction of species and recovery of those at risk of extinction is a priority action in the government's 25-year Environment Action Plan. We recognise the value in restoring naturally functioning ecosystems and creating resilient landscapes. However, reintroductions involving top-level predators, such as lynx, require careful consideration and rigorous approach to planning, risk assessments and implementation. The guidelines state that where risk is high and uncertainty remains about risks and their impacts, a translocation should not proceed. If that application cannot meet these standards, we'll have to decline it.
Give us any clue whether you're going to accept this lynx reintroduction application proposal for Kintyre?
Well, there's a lot of factors to consider in the process, so I won't be able to give you a yes or no answer just yet, I'm afraid. While the area of Kintyre offers broad suitability for the reintroduction of lynx, we still have not seen an ecological impact assessment for the programme. This will be vital to predict the likely impacts on the local environment. It also covers the information needed to complete a habitats regulations assessment and assessment of possible impacts on sites of special scientific interest and protected species. Without the ecological report, the application cannot ensure the potential impacts have been considered or that the area has been properly assessed as suitable for the lynx at the current time. Scottish National Heritage have also raised concerns about the applicant's capability to deliver a project of this scale and sensitivity. There are issues around the lack of scientific publication, which will be essential to meet the stated aims of this project. The application will also have to show the project engages with key stakeholders and has the support from local people who will be most affected by this introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Gove.
Thank you.
That's all from me. Back to the studio.
So there you have it, folks. Everyone has had a chance to share their viewpoint.
Yes, it's been a really thought-provoking debate and really interesting to follow to follow along with.
For more cutting-edge journalism, tune in to next week's debate about montane habitats in the Lake District National Park. Until then,
it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.